Hey guys, this is Off Topic Games and welcome to our first new segment, which we are currently calling it Off Topic Talks or Off Topic Tips, whichever one, or OTT. What we're doing in this new segment is basically talking about certain aspects of the game and giving you basic tips and tricks, or just talking about certain things that you can do to hopefully improve your game. So we're going to start from the basics and go up from there. Even if you know the general basics and you're like an expert at the game, I hope you guys still watch, because there are always ways and things you can learn from the videos or whatever I say. But I'll try to add a little bit of things that, even if it's like really basic, I'll try to add some more advanced kind of a thing that you can incorporate in your game. So for this specific topic, we are doing triggers. It sounds pretty basic, but hopefully I can do my best to make it worth your while. So we have 4 types of triggers in this game. We have heals, draws, crits, and stands. All triggers comes with an effect, either heal, draw, crit, and stand, and plus 5,000. So the triggers also can, the effects of the triggers can be given to each different unit. So for example, I guess there's only two. There's two offensive triggers and 2 defensive triggers. So for example, the crit can be given to one guy and the 5,000 can be given to another. The stand can be standing one guy and the 5,000 can be given to another. The trigger effects can only be activated if you have a clan with the same clan as your trigger on the field. So that's the only way a trigger can activate. Currently in tournament settings, a trigger will always go off normally, because our current tournament style, I guess, is clan fight, which means we can only have one clan. So unless you're Majesty Lord Blaster, I guess, or Glendios, you probably won't have this problem at all. So normally triggers will almost always go off. But as a semi-advanced pro tip, you can manipulate that to your advantage, where if you're playing against like Majesty Lord Blaster and they have a Blaster Dark with a Wingo Brave behind it, and they attack and use Wingo Brave's effect, and the only thing they have on the field is Blaster Dark, their Royal Paladin triggers will not do anything. So you can kind of use that to your advantage. You can also kill the Wingo Brave on your own turn if you want, and if they have a Blaster Dark Vanguard, they can't do anything. So it's kind of nice. It can be worked to your advantage, but normally it's almost never the case. In all honesty, this meta, you don't normally see Majesty Lord Blaster use that often. And Glendios, that can be a problem, but if that's really a problem, you probably lose the game by then. So, yeah. I'll explain the effects of the triggers. It's pretty obvious, but there are some like minor things. For heals, you can only have a maximum of 4 heals in your deck, and you can have a total combination of 16 triggers in your deck, but there's a restriction where there's only 4 heals in your deck. What a heal does is, when you drive or damage check it, if you have less damage than your opponent, then you heal the damage. Sorry, if you have more damage than your opponent, you heal the damage. That's pretty important. Also to note, the trigger always goes to the trigger zone first, and then you apply the effects. So if this goes to your trigger zone, then you activate its effect and check the damage. The card doesn't actually go to your damage first. So for the draw trigger, if it's checked your damage, you draw a card. And also apply 5,000 to something for all 4 of them. For the crit, when you drive check it or damage check it, you choose a card and put its critical power up 1, and it gains 5,000. So what a critical means is that when the attack goes through, the amount of critical it has, they perform that many damage checks. So if you have 2 criticals, then your opponent takes 2 damage, essentially. For a stand trigger, you apply 5,000 and stand a rear guard when it's checked. So each has its uses. That's the basic use of each effect. For powers, it's normally 5,000, and unless the vanilla ones are 5,000, and the power range is essentially from 3,000 to 5,000. 3,000 and 4,000 all normally have effects, or they should have effects. In terms of the shield power, heal, crit, and draw have 10,000 shield, and then the draw, heal, crit, and stand have 10,000 shield. Draw has 5,000 shield. The reason why the draw has 5,000 shield is because it draws you an extra card. So there are a lot of different opinions on triggers. Many people run 4 heal triggers. That's the generic standard for almost all decks, regardless of what other triggers you use. But the majority of triggers runs 4 heal, 4 draw, 4 crit, 8 crit, and no stands. There are variations, which is very common. And there are also decks that run no heal triggers, like certain really aggressive Ripple decks, or Spike Brothers, or something different like that. Which is fine. I really like that type of creative style, I guess. But personally, I almost like all my decks that I've ever played had 4 heals. Draw triggers are also really good. I don't agree with the people who say that it should never be run and draw triggers are bad, because draw triggers are very good. If you had I believe that one of the strongest damage checks in the game is a draw trigger or a heal trigger. Like, if you're on 12 crits, yes, but all your damage checks probably aren't good. Close to 16 of your draw triggers aren't good in the damage zone, because sometimes the heal does not go off. And if you're running 12 crit, normally you're at higher damage than your opponent, so the heal will normally go off. Draw trigger will always be useful on every single check. If it's in the drive check, so the offensive situation, then it's fine because you draw an extra card. It's not as good as a crit or a stand because it's not offensive, but it's still nice because you do gain an advantage over your opponent. But damage checking draw triggers is really good. So a lot of times, normally my deck will have draw triggers unless it's really not needed, like it's OTT or something, which probably draws enough. But you still can have draw triggers in OTT. For crits are really good. Arguably the best trigger in the game because it deals an extra damage. The fact that crits exist makes you being at 3 damage very scary because you can just lose the game. People get double critted a lot, triple critted occasionally. It happens, you just auto lose because your opponent hit 3 crits or 2 crits. So crits are really good. There's not really much else to explain. If you have crits in your deck, you want to swing with your Vanguard before your rear guards normally, or you want to have rear guard open so you can apply the crit to the rear guard. With the other two, it doesn't matter too much because it's just the 5,000 power, the 2 defensive ones, because you still get the draw effect no matter what. If you only have the Vanguard, and the Vanguard does not hit, the crit is essentially useless. Same with the stand, actually. The stand, you stand a guy, but if you only have the Vanguard, your stand is useless. But a lot of people believe that the stand is the worst trigger, and normally it's not used, which is true, it isn't used, but it is not necessarily the worst trigger. It kind of is, to be honest, because now in the current meta, it's usually not run in full over crits, because what I believe the main reason is that Link Joker exists, and if you lock your opponent's rear guards, then they can't stand anything and their trigger options become useless. So essentially a deck that can shut down your opponent's triggers is really good. But it does have its uses before Link Joker and still after. A lot of triggers nowadays have good effects, so it makes up for the loss of value, I guess, kind of. But this trigger is still good because it can force more cards out of your opponent's hand, and it's very control-y. Personally, I used to use it back in 2013. 6 stand, 6 draw, Kagero. With Dote, I won nationals with it, so it's not a bad card, or bad trigger. it still works because you control your opponent out, and then they lose card advantage while you gain more card advantage. So it is a nice trigger. It just has its uses. It depends in your deck and stuff. But it's still good. So that's basically all I have for this video. There are always different uses that you can have with triggers. It's the basic core of the game. That's why people call the game 100% luck. That's actually not a true fact. When you play the game, you'll understand it more. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and somehow come out with something, I hope. If not, that's okay. Please look forward to the next one, and I'll see you all later.